Hi, everybody. Welcome to the As You Are podcast. My name is Leslie Vanderganst. I'm the founder of Enso Coaching and Consulting, and I am here with Kathleen Fletcher and Libby Detling, two of our amazing coaches. And we're here with the amazing, wonderful Adi Pavlovic.
Hello.
Hello, who is the co-founder and CEO of Newzip.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh my gosh, we're so excited
to
talk to you and learn more about what you're doing with Newzip.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah? Okay, well, tell us, what is Newzip?
Newzip is a new concept we call real estate brokerage as a service. So a lot of consumers are starting their journey with their financial lenders because in this market, as everyone knows, affordability is an all-time low. And so the idea, the way that mortgage lenders operate today is they just give you a pre-approval letter and they say, good luck.
Yeah.
Right. And yeah, it's the hardest time to buy in history, but you'll figure it out. And so we work with mortgage lender institutions to actually have their own real estate brokerage in-house in a RESPA compliant way that allows these customers to get pre-approved, but also then have a real estate agent that they can work with all kind of in one place instead of going out to do it separately. So
that's amazing. Okay. So what brought you to this idea? Like, how did this all manifest? How did this come together?
Yeah. Oh man, it was a long road really. But as you know, I was working at Keller Williams, head of innovation. We got to see a lot of problems that, I spent a lot of time shadowing real estate agents and the focus groups with home buyers, home sellers, right? KW Labs. And so this is something that came up that I was kind of surprised not a lot of people were doing. So Rocket Mortgage, for instance, has Rocket Homes. It's an in-house. They're the same parent company. But I was so interested in that product, and the customers save a lot of money. They're super happy. So I was like, why isn't every lender doing this? And so when I left Keller Williams, I was an entrepreneur in residence at Modern Ventures, which is a venture capital firm that invests in prop tech companies. And it gave me time to investigate all these things that I was curious about. And come to find out, 98% of mortgage lenders don't do this because it's really hard, and there's a compliance risk to doing it that super big companies like Rocket can do in-house, but not every other mortgage lender can do. And so I just kind of sought out to solve that problem, and luckily met my co-founder who is kind of already on this journey as well. And so our journeys conjoined, and that's how Newzip came to be.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Okay, so I want to go back to how you and I met because we were all working at Keller Williams. Libby and I were working in the people department. We were doing some recruiting, and we were looking for some really talented people. And I remember at the time, Brett Smith, who, a wonderful man, he was the head of research at the time, was looking for some new research analysts to come into the team. And, recruiting is such an interesting thing. But at the time, we were doing a lot of hunting, right? So we would go out and try to find somebody who had the right profile, and then stalk them a little bit, ask some questions, and then try to get them to come in and have a conversation. So Adi was the result of one of those.
Stalking.
One of the stalkings.
Yes.
And I remember, we brought Adi in, and we were going through this process, one of which was called the life journey. And this is one of the processes in Keller Williams where we really go back and we talk about your journey from, college or when you've graduated to where you are today. And I remember very specifically, Adi was talking about, you were talking about, it was time for you to decide on a college.
Yes.
You had received a basketball scholarship to a school. And then you were trying to decide, do I go this route where I'm kind of focused on basketball and keeping that scholarship and, going that, taking education in that route, or focusing on, education, et cetera. And the reason to just do 100% education focus was because you wanted to be, at the time, a role model for your little brother.
Yeah. Little time.
Which...
I remember she came running in.
I remember that moment, and every time I think about you, Adi, I always think about that. So many people think about, I just want to go to college. I want to, I want to be an athlete, and I want to have everything completely covered and paid for, and focus on that thing. And here you are, I don't know, 18, 19 at the time, saying, I want to really be a role model for for my brother. Like,
Yeah.
talk a little bit about that, because I think that's it says so much about you as a human.
Yeah, no, thank you. It's funny, that moment, you remember that part of the interview. I remember a different part of the interview that was also career changing for me.
Oh, so curious.
Seriously, and I tell that story as well, but we'll get to that. So, so my brother Tony, we have a 12-year age difference. And so I was born in Yugoslavia, ex-Yugoslavia, now Bosnia. So my country, we kind of fled during the war. So we were immigrants. So I'm like, first-gen immigrant. And so the concept of college I really didn't know much about it, to be honest. I accidentally applied to a college wrong. Like, they told me like, hey, you meant to do this. I was like, oh no, because like I'm the first in my family. And so I was going through that process, and there was a couple of schools that were interested in me for basketball, but they were like, low opportunities. And University of Texas at Austin to me was like, oh, I hear that's one of the best schools. Like, I want to go there. And yeah, so my brother, 12-year difference, which is a big difference. He was born here. There's obviously a delay there for my parents. And so I really was always kind of like dad 2.0 for him, because my dad moved here when he was in his mid-30s. So learning English was always a challenge. Assimilating was a challenge for him.
Yeah.
So, like, when I was going through high school and college, it was the first time for everything. Like, I showed up to homecoming without a sash because I didn't know you were supposed to do that, right? Like, there's a lot of these moments I was like, man, I really wish I had like American parents. So with my brother, I was like, oh, I'm going to be that for him. So, I was like, which I think I was like the toughest parents out of all three of us. It's like, I started to find out like he was telling stuff to my mom and dad, but not me. I was like, okay, I need to pull back a little bit, be more of a big brother. But yeah, so I just wanted to make sure that he had a good path to follow, because I didn't.
Right.
And sure enough, I went to University of Texas at Austin, graduated St. Austin, and he did the same thing. And so he's 24 years old. He lives in Austin right now, and he just bought a house.
Oh,
Worked out great.
Bought a house.
Yeah. Also, in this economy,
Yeah. Hey, what is it? Buy that, marry the rate.
that's right. Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Oh man.
Yeah, you date the rate, marry the house.
There you
so,
go.
Yeah, high interest rates. But I was like,
exactly.
Hey.
I mean, that's the word on the street, right? Buy now, because interest rates are high, then just refi.
Yeah, the math is, if you wait 2 years for rates to drop, the amount that the house would have appraised is larger than how much interest rate you paid. So even though the interest rates take on the headlines, if you do the numbers, it's always smarter to buy than rent.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely.
Great.
Okay, so talk to us a little bit about what your team structure looks like right now. Like, how are you guys kind of executing on this business proposition?
Yeah, so we're a small startup. I've always had an itch, like the startup bug. I've always wanted to build and moving to America, the story is, right, like you build something from scratch, and there's a lot of examples of that.
Yeah.
And so I really fell into that story. And being in Austin in college, when I graduated college, I was around South by Southwest. So I volunteered at South by Southwest, and I caught the bug.
Yeah.
And that bug eventually led me to Keller Williams. And so I'd always wanted to do that. I think at Keller Williams, I got the ability to be an entrepreneur, which was really nice. I got to build my own career path, and I had great mentors like yourself and Libby that I could go to and be like, hey, I want to do this. And you guys were like, all right, cool, write a job description. Yeah. And I did. Like, I remember that.
Yes.
So
Yes,
Keller Williams was a really great culture that allowed me to do that. But there was a little voice in the back of my head, like, oh, I'm kind of doing this the safe way. I'm doing this with resources, and I'm part of this really big ship, and I get to impact some things. But man, I wonder what it's like to build the entire ship from the ground up. And so when I was at Modern Ventures, when I left Keller Williams, there was a lot of opportunities opened up, and I was really kind of looking for the right one. And it wasn't until I met my co-founder, Todd, who lives in Boston, and he had been trying this business model for a few years and was having limited success. And so Todd's a great marketing analytics person. He was new to real estate. And I was like, I've just spent a decade learning about real estate. I was like, I kind of have to build a ship in here because I feel like I have an unfair advantage. And so I really couldn't have done it without a co-founder. And I think that's a story you hear a lot. Solo foundership is so hard. Right. The number 2 reasons companies fail is not finding product market fit it, or co-founder's not working out. Because it's so hard to start a company on your own. That relationship with the co-founder has to be essential. And so I met Todd and our main investor, Howard, and we just formed a really good team. And then it was like, okay, we're going to do this like the lean startup way. So there's the lean startup methodology, which is a book that I love, which is about, hey, build and provide value first and then like charge later. And at the time when we wanted to start Newzip, venture capital was on fire. 2020, it was, if you just had an idea, you could get a check for tens of millions of dollars. And the idea doesn't have to be that great. You don't have to have a product. And for me, it was like, like that would be really nice. Like I'm not going to say no.
I mean.
But unfortunately, the timing by the time we had a product, the market cooled off. And so we really got to build it lean. And so the team is about 12 people. We're fully virtual. We're broken up into ops, sales, engineering, and everyone kind of wears multiple hats. I wear my marketing hat. I wear my sales hat daily. I wear my product hat. And so it's really, everyone has multiple jobs because they bought into like, hey, we're going to build this. And I always believe that we consume so much as individuals. We're always consuming something. It feels nice to build something. And that's the story. And you guys are building something here as well. And that's the story I tell my team. And I said, hey, listen, I know you could probably earn a little bit more money elsewhere, or you could be doing something else, but you're actually building the ship and you get to have a voice in building it. And so that's the kind of mentality we have with like a small startup team in this climate.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So can you talk a little bit more, because again, there's this piece of you that is, somebody who's been an immigrant, who's come and, built a life here. You're living the American dream by kind of creating this, business. How does all that get integrated into what you guys do on a day-to-day basis? From a vision standpoint, like what does that look like?
Yeah. My team really looks to me on the vision part. I've realized that's my superpower. And then you don't know that usually, right? Especially when you're an entrepreneur, you're focused and working in one company, one culture. So you're like, oh, I'm good at this. I'm just going to go replicate this elsewhere. It's like the easy thing to do.
Right.
When I sought out to build it, I was like, am I a good founder? Am I a good CEO? Like, no one's going to be like, oh, you're doing a great job.
I'll tell you that. Yes. Great job.
Thank you. So you're kind of seeking this validation, and you have this kind of, you're yearning for like, I just want to make it. I just want to build it. And as I started to work with my team and we're talking about what we were going to build and how we're going to build it, I went to them and I said, hey, I feel like I'm always like the idea guy. And I'm like, you feel comfortable to bring ideas to the table as well. And they just looked at me and said, no, we really we believe in your vision. Like, we just want to do that. So I was like, okay, well, that's validating. Like,
all right.
I don't know if I'm right, but we'll find out together. So it's kind of a beautiful combination of like how that I realized like, oh yeah, I drive the vision and the team believes in my vision.
Right.
And so we're just going to navigate and things will happen. And going back to the ship metaphor, we have a true North Star, but how we get there, it's a lot of zigging and zagging.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you, with your team, I mean, I worked with you in the past in building your team and things like that. And I know that you were always very easy to work with, but your team was always very tight. I feel like you guys always worked really well together. How have you, in building this new team, kind of how have you gone about it, and what's the culture at Newzip?
Yeah, it's the margin for error is so much smaller at a startup.
Yeah.
And a lesson I've learned is you want everyone to be an A+ team member, not an A-, not a B+. When you're part of a bigger company, there's room for that. And you can mentor people to grow and you can spend that time. When you're at a startup, we're go, go, go. So it's like, if I have to take time to mentor you, that's time I'm taking away from something else. And so my mentality has always been hire good people. You can learn skills. And so if you have a good background or if you have the right skill set, as long as you're good people, that's worked out 90% of the time in hiring.
Yeah.
Look
to Leslie over there.
Because you don't.
Most of the time.
It doesn't work 100%.
Every now and then.
You guys probably have way more stories than that. But so we've looked for really good people and we have made mistakes. We've made hiring mistakes where we had good people, good skill set, there were like B players. And I remember probably about 6 months ago, we had an example where we had a B player and like, hey, do we want to keep a B player on this thing? We're focused on all these other things. And we said, no, that's not the culture we're trying to build, because everyone else gets to see that there's a B player on the team. And we can't hold everyone to the same standard if someone's, slacking. So we made the tough decision to replace that individual and bring in someone who is an A+ team member. And that you can tell the culture and the energy feeds off of that. So that's been kind of our mentality. And like literally every hire matters so much to the P&L, to the culture, to the vision, that we take it super seriously. And I've been fortunate enough at Keller Williams. I thought we had a really great interview process that, I've taken some of those things. It's not as, it's a little bit more simplified.
Yeah.
We don't have,
right.
But yeah, so that's kind of how we hire and staff.
Okay, so what defines an A+ player for you guys?
Self-driven for sure, right? It's if you're asking what to do, you're already not an A+ player. It's more or less like, hey, 30, 60, 90, by 90 days, you need to be self-sufficient. You're not asking for help. You can be curious. You can come to meetings prepared, be proactive. But to me, A+ player is being proactive and understanding the vision, being curious, asking questions, not waiting to find out what to do. And so those two things to me very quickly stick out. If you're being proactive and curious, there's a good chance you're an A+ player. Now you have to like deliver and execute and all those things, which, it's just like any job.
Right.
But to me, if you have those two traits very quickly, in a startup environment, we move really fast. I'm like, hey, by day 90, we'll look at your 30, 60, 90, and we'll be laughing at it. Like,
Right.
But you got to be cool with that. And when we hire, we tell people, especially people that have worked in a corporate environment, I say, hey, working at a startup is very different. And it works for some people, not for everyone. So we just want to find out within 90 days whether you like this, and we'll tell you if we think we like you.
Interesting.
And 9 out of 10 times it's worked so far.
Yeah.
So what was that transition like for you, going from corporate to, startup? And it's your baby, but what have been the biggest challenges or learning curves coming from a corporate environment?
It's a great question. I think it's time management and work-life balance.
Yeah.
Time management, when you're at a corporate, you get to decide maybe half of it, but half of it's pre-decided for you. You have to do these meetings. We do monthly, quarterly business planning goals. So you're kind of like, okay, cool. Like half of my job is kind of, I have to follow the rules, and hopefully half I can kind of make my own path. And some places you don't make it out there at all. Like it's 100% structured. So with starting your own thing, it's fully unstructured, and then you get to decide how much structure you want to build.
Yeah.
And it's really how much structure can you build at our stage. We're an early stage startup. We raised a seed round, so we're still not like a mid-sized startup. So for us, it's like, okay, cool. What are the rules we all agree to live by? And it's kind of a democratic decision. Like I look at my leadership team and say, hey, like, what are we going to hold ourselves accountable to? We're going to do quarterly business planning, quarterly board meetings. And so, taking some of the things we like and then not doing the things we don't like.
Yes.
It's just like, no, that's dumb. Like
we don't like that.
I've never liked doing that. Which is really, that's the most fulfilling part, is like, by the end of it, when you zoom out, you've built a culture and processes that like, it wasn't just me, it was me and the team. And then every quarter we look back and say, hey, are we doing the things that, actually, like we thought this would be a good idea. This is a really bad idea. Hey, we thought virtual happy hours every week was a good idea. It's a really bad idea. Right? So,
Yeah.
So it's definitely like learning as you go. But it's more fun because you get to make every decision and be part of it. And then if it works, you get to celebrate the success together. And if it doesn't work, then you get to learn from it and build again.
You're doing the 30, 60, 90 for yourself and all of that, right? Where it's like at day 90, looking back and being able to laugh at, oh, can't believe I thought that we would do this.
Yeah, I think retrospectives to me are just like a no-brainer. Like every quarter, meet with your team, what did we do well? What did we not do well? So I think what we do is like, what do we keep doing? What do we stop doing? And then like, what do we pat ourselves on the back for?
I love that.
I was inspired by a question with this too, which is like, what was the most informative failure you have had?
Informative failure.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've never failed before.
That's true. Never.
Audience flawless people.
No failure here.
With the startup or just in general, I guess?
I mean, can we start with one and go to the other?
Yeah. Prior to the startup, I started consulting. I realized I had a pretty good subject matter expertise in this real estate space. I've been around building enough product that it was a skill set that was in demand. So I started consulting. And which is really fun and exciting because you get to say, hey, I want to do this for 20 hours a week, and you sign a contract. And I just overdid it. And I started to realize that I signed on. I had 2 really good clients, and I was really enjoying consulting. And I also had time to ideate what became Newzip. Right. So I had to ideate what I wanted to build next. And I had this amazing 3rd customer opportunity that was like once in a lifetime. And I took it and I was miserable. I immediately turned into like 60-hour work weeks, consulting. And then I had no time for my side idea. And it was like, this isn't what I wanted to do. Like I just got distracted by, oh, you want me to do this? Sure. Like, and so looking back at it, I was like, why am I giving other people my time?
Yeah.
The whole point of starting something was so I can control my time. That's ultimately the freedom we're all looking for. And so that's when I started. That was a failure because I couldn't get out of that contract for 90 days. And very quickly, I learned I didn't want to do it anymore. But I was waking up at 4 a.m. every day to get on calls with the engineering team in Australia and India and the Middle East. And I was just like miserable. And it was very fruitful from like a monetary time in my life. But like I just realized like I'm not selling my time ever again. Like it is my time and I'm going to spend it doing what I want to do. Whether that's a startup, whether it's a corporate gig, like I'm just going to do the things that I want. So that was a little bit of a burnout failure that then when I launched Newzip, I was like, okay, like I just want to do all the things that like I wanted to set out to do. And that was a great failure to have right before doing the startup because I'm very protective with my time now.
Good. Okay. So speaking of time, you've got a baby, a teeny tiny baby, like 3 months.
3 months. Tomorrow.
3 months tomorrow. Okay.
Yeah.
And you have a startup.
Yes.
Another baby. So there's like 2 babies in your life right now. What does that look like? Like, how do you prioritize your time? And I also, one of the conversations that we had before you left Keller Williams was really important to you to make sure you had time for your wife, and that was a big part of, going into the consultancy work that you wanted to get into. So so you have a wife and a baby. And a business baby.
Yeah.
Business baby.
Cutest little baby.
Yeah. From your original question, like family's always been really important to me. And working remotely, I think, has been a blessing. There's pros and cons to working remotely, obviously. But I think the pro is very much like more family time, especially with like a newborn. Managing both, I don't know. I've only been doing it 90 days. So I need to do a retro.
Now.
We're not going to decide whether you mastered it or not.
Tomorrow. Ready to laugh.
We're doing the retro right now. It's been rewarding. It really has been. The difficulties of having a startup and especially being remote is like time doesn't matter. Like it's like your work day doesn't really end. You're always thinking about the business. There's always a lot of thoughts in your head about it. And so it's impossible to turn off. And people are like, oh, I just turned it off at this time. I'm like, that's really not realistic for me because I'm so passionate. I care about this, but I also want to make sure like my wife gets I'm present there with her. I'm present with Poppy, our baby. And so it's really, I'm still figuring it out by all means, but, working remotely allows me to control my time. And so I tell my wife, like the first month we had the baby after I did like a 2-week parental leave was like, I did a time block, 2 hours a day where I'm just going to relieve my wife so I can help her with the baby. I don't care how big the sales meeting is or whatever. And then it turned into more like flexible. So now my wife has access to my calendar and she'll like block it and be like, hey, I need you to watch Poppy.
Oh my gosh.
And so we'll talk about that daily basis. Like, hey, what do you need? Like she's dealing with a lot with the newborn. She's breastfeeding. And so I'm just like, want to make sure she has the breaks. So it's a really true partnership. Like trying to we're figuring out parenthood. This is our first kid. So like we're truly collaborating and sometimes, the other person needs a break and sometimes I need a break. But it's been really fun. And I'll tell you this, like the working from home thing, I had my executive team flying to Austin. We're doing our annual planning. And we booked like a co-working space downtown Austin. So we went downtown to work every day. And I was there like 9 to 6 and we did dinners. And really, my wife took on the brunt of like a newborn at home while I'm doing this. And I just realized like how much I miss the newborn when I'd come home. I was like, wow, just being around you working from home or getting to hold you for 10 minutes means so much more. So work-life balance is something I haven't perfected by any means, but I control my time. I block it off for my family. And I just make sure when the time is blocked off, I'm present. Right?
Yeah, that's really good.
I'm gonna like run with this with another question because there is this theme about how important family is to you. Starting off with the story that Leslie told with turning down the basketball scholarship. So, being a role model, what lessons do you hope to impart on your daughter?
Oh man, be funny.
Yes, most important. Thank you.
I really do. Like, you have to have humor in life.
Yeah.
I think that's my language. And like, it just makes the day brighter the more you laugh, right? So, I definitely we talk about it all the time. Like around our house, we want like laughter and music to be a big part of her growing up, but also to be kind of role models we're doing. With our life, with our careers, me and my wife are both passionate about what we do in our own regards, and we want to like build things, and we want to design things, and we want to be producers, not just consumers, kind of like what I talked about it. So I think the biggest thing I'd want my daughter to come away with is like, hey, like do what you want to do, but like you can build whatever it is you want to do. You can build it. You don't just have to consume it, whether it's a creative art like music or design, whether she wants to be corporate, right? Like it's like, yeah, we talk about that a lot at our house. It's just about like being proactive rather than reactive. And so, I think, still 90 days in, but I'd love for her to come out with, hey, life is fun. You can laugh, you can enjoy it. But building things is also like a big part of it.
I think it's so cool now just to be, a parent and, thinking back to, our parents that everyone just had a job, you went to the office, that's kind of what they came home, that was it. And just being able to instill the kind of creativity in our kids of your life can look however you want it to, right?
That's exactly it. Well,
not just here you have these few professions to choose from and you will go to an office and you will do it until you die. And I think it's so cool just to be able to say you're really great at this. So explore that. What does that look like?
Yeah.
And it's just, I'm excited for kids to grow up with that and, see kind of what the future holds from all these kids that grew up with, the opportunity to really explore and create.
Yeah.
It's a great point. Like the generations before us, right?
Yeah.
It was very formulaic, and it was like, hey, do this 9 to 5 and then work at this company for 40 years and get a pension.
Yes.
Right. And it's like, that's no longer the modern way.
Yeah.
And by that, which is good, I think. And so, I think we're the generation that's kind of figuring it out. And I'm hoping the next year.
Yeah, it's either going to go really well or
we're building that ship.
Exactly.
I feel like for this, it's to not be afraid of uncertainty.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well said.
Yeah. So, Audie, in building Newzip, what are the biggest challenges that you are kind of facing maybe the last like 60 days to now?
It's a great question. When you're a startup, right, it's getting people's attention. So we primarily sell to financial institutions, large mortgage lenders and executives. And so being a startup, you don't just get that respect. You have to earn it, like literally earn it. You have to go out there and do like pitch competitions, which we just have the luxury of like winning a couple. And you have to
tell us about those.
Tell us about it. Pitching is over that.
Now. People are listening. We hope.
It's good stuff. Yeah. So there was 2 back-to-back, and with the newborn, going on a business trip is like, so I do one night max. So I had a pitch competition in Dallas called Venture Tech. It's all the credit unions in the industry get together and they vote on the startup they're interested in the most. And so we had a 10-minute demo and we finished second. And we finished second by a handful of votes. So it was live audience voting, and we were in the lead the whole time. And in the last few seconds, someone jumped us by a couple of votes.
No.
And I'm very competitive.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate. I like to think I'm a good public presenter. And so I was like, man, like I was so close. Like, what could I have done? Could I have landed one more joke up there?
That was it.
That was it. That was
Why being
it.
funny is important.
So that was still amazing, and we got a lot out of that. And then luckily a week later, we had another pitch competition we're invited to by Lending Tree. And so Lending Tree is a huge opportunity for us because they're a large company, Super Bowl advertising company, and a lot of the large mortgage lenders buy leads from Lending Tree. And 75% of Lending Tree leads don't have a real estate agent yet. So we're like, we fit really well. And so they like us enough to invite us to do the pitch competition. And we had to compete against a lot of very impressive companies. There's 8 total. 2 of them were like billion-dollar public companies, CoreLogic, Snowflake, $60 billion company. And everyone's building like AI. And we're building a little bit of AI as well. And so we did our pitch, and I practiced because I was like, I'm not losing by a few votes. I'm not going to go travel to Charlotte, leave my daughter and wife at home. And and to our surprise, we're going up against these really behemoth companies, and we ended up winning. They announced us, and we won first place. And it was just validation. It was like, okay, these are the people we sell to, and they thought we won the audience vote, and we beat these really large companies. Like, well, why not us?
Yeah.
Right? Like, why can't we build something amazing? So it was validating and solve the challenge of like, people don't really know who we are. Like, how do you get marketing and press all the time?
Win awards.
Win awards, do podcasts.
Exactly. You're doing it all.
But also just build a good product that people need and that people like. And so luckily we have really good ratings and reviews from our customers, from our mortgage lenders. So we published a white paper that says, hey, don't believe us. Here's a case study of like, we worked with this lender. We achieved these amazing results. We let our numbers do the talking. And that's an uphill battle. And all those things, great momentum. And still to this day, we're like, who's Newzip? Or are you guys small? Are you guys going to be around in a couple of years? You know, because we're trying to penetrate this behemoth of an industry. Yeah. Being a startup, it really is like a huge disadvantage. And so we just tried to be scrappy and lean and figure that out and get the right platforms to talk about what we're doing, and then eventually just execute on what we're saying we do, we actually do. So doing that on like a very small budget is like the biggest challenge.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, well, so what's next? I mean, what's next? Like, how are you thinking about the next 6 months, year?
Yeah, we're building this consumer-facing, like this ChatGPT, OpenAI, all these AI tools. You know, everyone's an AI company now, so that's why I don't want to be like, oh, we're doing AI. It's like we're leveraging modern tools, just like we always did. We leverage React and all these other modern engineering technologies, and now we're leveraging AI, just like everyone else that's in technology. But we're leveraging it to do something unique, which is if you look at home affordability, people are taking longer to buy. They're spending longer time on Zillow. They're getting pre-approved, but they're taking 6, 9, 12 months longer to buy because there's not a lot of inventory. Rates are really high. Affordability is low. And so the experience hasn't changed. They go on Zillow, they go get pre-approved, they go talk to a realtor. Realtor's like, hey, we'll put you on a drip campaign and we'll see if an MLS listing pops up that fits you. And it can be a very long time until you find that home. And so we're thinking, hey, all these banks have this really interesting financial data about you. And then we kind of know the real estate market. There's real estate data that we can pull. So what if we combine the two and said, hey, here's your financial persona, and here is the real estate market you're looking to buy. And here's what that picture looks like. We don't think you're going to buy in the next 6 to 9 months. We think it's going to take 10. And here's what you can do in those 10 months. And so supplying people with tools to do something while they're trying to afford a house, not just credit repair, but like going beyond that, educating about the market, making sure they're confident, or looking in other areas that they might need to consider. Because I really do think being an immigrant, I've always believed in homeownership. When I interviewed at Keller Williams, when you reached out to me, you said something really interesting. My journey was, I did a startup out of college, or I joined a startup, it failed. So I learned from that. And then I went to a talk by Naval Ravikant, who's like this like guru for startups. And he said the number one reason companies fail is product market fit. They don't do enough market research. So I went out and became a market research analyst. I'm like, okay, I'm going to do that. So then when I do have a startup idea, we won't fail.
Yeah.
Did that for 3 years. And then I get a LinkedIn message from Leslie Vandergeist. And it says, hey, Keller Williams, we're hiring, we're doing this. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. I don't know anything about real estate. And you said, perfect. And I was like, that's so, okay, like what? And so you remember the story about my brother. I remember you saying like, yeah, perfect. And I was like, that's really interesting. And then that was my step into real estate. My family had only bought and owned a house for like a year, and they couldn't afford the mortgage payments because we just didn't know what home ownership was like. And so that always stuck out to me. And then Keller Williams, I got to learn about the power of wealth creation of real estate, which like, if you worked at a place like Keller Williams, it's like second, it's like, yeah, duh.
Everyone is like,
Everyone should know that. And I was like, I didn't know this. And I replayed like my parents trying to buy a house and I was like, oh my God, like this is super powerful. And so that's been a driving factor of why I wanted to launch Newzip, is to empower home ownership. And I think financial lenders could do a better job of doing it. But also just, you know, the market's getting tougher. More and more investors are buying single family homes, which is making it harder.
Yeah,
and so really that's kind of the mission. I forgot the question I'm answering at this point, but that's the why.
Sounds good. I got distracted by everything that you were saying.
I know everything is so good. I want to I don't want to like go back in time too far so much as just be like really inspired and excited about what you said with, you know, if you've got home buyers, potential ones, where you're realistic with them and say, it might take 10 months for you to get there, but here's what you can do in the meanwhile. I just love that because it can be so disheartening to be told, wait. And so to take what can feel passive and make it active, I think has got to be one of those big empowering moments, and to understand it more and to not just have it feel like you're hearing no again, but you know, it can be educational and it can make you all the better prepared for when that 10th month hits.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's what we believe. And we just believe that the home buyers of this persona, specifically first-time home buyers, Gen Z millennials, have been underserved. They go on Zillow.
Stop buying avocado toast.
Yeah.
You know, we're just like, it's not that.
Like, let's talk about student loan debt. Let's talk about debt consolidation.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, that's kind of our target persona. I mean, we work with everyone, but the idea is like, what's the future home ownership buyer look like? And they're getting older. I mean, when I bought my house, the average first-time age of a home buyer was about 30, 31. Now it's 34. What's it going to be in 5 years? And so, you know, and that's why, going back to my brother, I was like, hey, buy a house now. Like you're paying rent and you have roommates, you can have a mortgage, and that mortgage is just forced savings anyway. So, big believer in home ownership, and we're just trying our best to empower that.
That's amazing. Okay, 2 questions. Number 1 is, how do you see Newzip impacting the real estate industry, specifically for real estate agents?
So we work with real estate. We're pro real estate agents. We basically are building the bridge between financial institutions and real estate agents. So we have licensed agents in-house, but all they do, they're really kind of an inside sales team. They qualify, nurture, and hold hands of these people for months or years, because real estate agents don't always have the tools to do that. Like I said, they put you on a drip campaign, an MLS alert, and then they just hope something happens. And so the way we work with agents is we say, hey, we're working with this lender that spends tens of millions of dollars on lead gen. 75% of those leads don't have realtors. So we're going to qualify and nurture them. And when they're ready to look for a house in your local market, we're gonna give you this referral for market standard referral fee. And would you be willing to pay it? And 10 times out of 10, like, yeah, this is a lead that's been qualified and nurtured for months. They're pre-approved. Like, yeah, this is, as an agent, like, this is why you become a real estate agent. It's like, I want to help these customers.
Yeah.
So we're very pro agent. We work with them. We understand right now there's a lot of commotion about the agent commission, the buy side commission, and our stance has been
that was my second question.
You're
in the know.
Knew. Yeah. How's that impacting? Yeah.
Listen, the market sets commission. We've all known that working at Keller Williams. So sure, today average agent makes 2.7% commission. Maybe it'll be 2.5, maybe 2, maybe 1. We don't know. The market gets to decide. It's always been like that, which is why the case kind of frustrates me, is because no one's out there saying, hey, you have to pay this. It's always been negotiable, and consumers should have the privilege to negotiate that with their agents. But the market rate's been the market rate. And so we always said, hey, I don't know what the market's going to do. You might decide that they want to pay agents less or more. We can't control that. So we don't know. What we focus on is, what do the consumers want? And when we talk with customers, they still want representation, right? And they're going to their financial institution first. And so we're like, why shouldn't the financial institution be able to provide buyer representation? And that's what we do. And so we're positioned to say, hey, whatever the market charges, but we think this is the future customer experience. And so we like to think we're well positioned for the Gen Z millennial home buyers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting with this recent litigation that, to your point, it's always been the way the real estate industry has functioned. And, the market's going to determine what the commission looks like. I think ultimately all it's going to do is just require buyers, agents to just communicate their value. That's it. Right? Maybe they haven't had to in the past, but now it's just going to be a more fruitful conversation. And then I think consumers become more educated around what the real estate agent does, and then more value is associated with that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Well said. I think the industry is just going to have to get a little bit more sophisticated in communicating value props.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So the question was what's next, right? So you were talking about the consumer. That was what I was like, I'm just pulled this out of everything you're saying, but that was what the question was, what's next?
We're building the consumer experience and we're leveraging these AI tools. They're really good at creating tailored content. So content that's relevant to you. So the idea by merging financial data and real estate data and using AI, it can feel very personalized at scale. And then we'll have a human there available at any time. So technology is always trying to replace humans. We like to believe it's a combination of technology and human empathy. At any given point, you can talk to a licensed real estate agent. They're W-2 employees. We hire them so they're available at all times. But also we're going to give you the technology to kind of figure it out and play with it yourself because Gen Z specifically doesn't like to talk to humans all the time. They like to text with humans. And so we give them the ability to do both, or here's some tools to play around and educate yourself about the market. That's the future that we're facing.
I love it. Okay. So I want to ask one last question and then we'll kind of wrap up. But what, in being the CEO and creating this new product, what is something that you've really learned about yourself in all of this? And you've mentioned being a visionary. You've mentioned how valuable time is to you. Is there anything else that's kind of come up for you from just this is really important to me from a foundational standpoint, and I have to lean into this in order to stay consistent with this thing?
Oh, good question. So many things to be better at. I think the biggest thing for me was imposter syndrome.
I've never heard of it.
Yeah.
You're the only one.
Yeah, weird.
Right?
Nobody has it.
Yeah.
And I've come to believe imposter syndrome doesn't exist. If everyone has it, then it's not a thing. It's a part of the human condition. And I learned this when I was at Keller Williams. I stepped up as part of my role at Keller Williams. I started our UX design team. I'm not a UX designer. I've never been a UX designer. I told people when I was hiring them, we know we need to build a UX design team. I'm passionate about it, but I'm not going to pretend like I know what UX design is every day. So I hired the right people to empower me to do that. A part of that, I got invited to a forum. I got lucky and I got invited to this forum of all the top design leaders in the country. And I have no idea how I got invited to it, but we're talking about the head of design of Google, Apple. And there's a channel, it's a Slack community. There's a channel called Imposter Syndrome. And where people will share their stories or put a question about, hey, I'm starting a new thing. I don't feel good about it. And I saw the head of Google design liked a lot of the messages. And I said, what are they doing in this?
Why are you here?
Yeah. Right? You are the top that everyone's measuring themselves to. And you are measuring yourself against somebody else as well.
Yeah.
Right.
And so for me, it was what's the kind of CEO or what kind of founder do I want to be? And there's a million of stories out there about the Ubers of the world or WeWork. Now they're making movies about them all the time. And I really just stopped paying attention to what other people are doing because for the first year, I've been doing this for over 2 years now. First year, I thought I had to fit the profile. What's the profile? Ivy League? Well, I don't check that, right? Raised a ton of money? I don't check that. But I do check. I'm trying to check this imaginary checklist of what a founder should do because I've never been a founder. I know a handful and they're all unique. And you only hear about the successful stories. You don't hear about the failures. Right. And so you kind of put yourself, put them on a pedestal. And so after a year of burning out, someone told me, I was like, how do I know if I'm doing a good job? And they just said, well, what are the results? Look at the results. And he's like, what are you trying to do? Well, I'm trying to build this product. I'm trying to build this team. I'm trying to build a company that generates revenue. He's like, are you doing that? And I was like, yeah, we're doing it. We could always be doing better. And he's like, well, do you have plans to do it better? I was like, yeah, we do. And he goes, well, then there you go. You just answered your own question, which is like what every good coach should do. And so for me, it was just like, okay, cool. I don't care what anyone else is doing. I know what I want to build. I know how I want to build it. And so I'm just going to like stop paying attention. And like, I'm not an imposter. Like I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And that confidence has like, this second year has been a lot different for me from like being proactive. And I think good energy attracts good opportunity. And we've had a lot more opportunity in the second year than we did the first year.
Oh my gosh, that's so great. And like, so happy for you, you know, that it's like such a thing. I mean, also like all day, every day, imposter syndrome as well. And it takes a lot of work, right?
It's human condition.
But it is, you know, it does require that like kind of internal look at like, what do I value? What are the things that I want to accomplish? What are the ways that I'm going to know that we're making the right kind of progress? And, you know, kudos to you for doing that work and looking internally. I saw something, Adam Grant posted something that said, everyone has imposter syndrome. The only people who don't are narcissists. So, so there you go.
For the people I know who don't feel it.
Right? So I don't know. I think it was Adam Grant. I don't want to misquote, but okay. Anyway, so so how do people learn more about you? Where can we read more about this consumer-facing product, right? That's kind of a big thing that's going to be available to people, yeah?
Yeah. We're just teasing it. So we teased it at the Lending Tree Summit, which is where we won. So like, okay, cool. Like people, I guess, do want this. So we're in the process of rolling it out. If you want to learn more, newzip.com, Newzip, like a new zip code. That's our website. You can find me on there, all the information about what we're building and all the things to come.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Audie. We're so grateful for you for joining us and having this
Such great
conversation.
energy.
Yeah,
this
it
was fun.
amazing. Yeah, so good to see
appreciate
you
it.
again, as always.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, thank you so much for joining us today, and Audie for coming as you are. We really appreciate that. And as always, subscribe to all of our channels. And if you have any questions or want to learn more about Enso coaching and consulting, go to ensocc.com, and we will see you again soon.